Hi, I'm Ian, and I'm going to walk you through some of the stuff that we've researched based on airline tickets today. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is the deregulation of the airline industry since 1978. The airline industry has become much more open to new players since 1978, and obviously a lot of deregulation on parts of governments around the world. And with more players in the industry, obviously that's more of a supply of the airline tickets, and therefore over the last 40 years or so, we've seen a major decrease in the price of airline tickets, obviously adjusted for inflation. Also, with advancements of aircraft technology and computing power, has also contributed to the decrease in prices. And over the last 40 years, air travel has increased over 8 times. Airlines have begun to price their tickets into certain categories and targeting different markets with the same product, which isn't really seen very commonly these days. So we're going to walk you through some of the strategies that airlines use to make maximum profit through targeting different markets within the exact same product. So let's look at the major effectors of airline costs. And obviously we can think of the most common one, which would be oil. So a major player in the price of air travel is oil, which fuels the engines, obviously. And this it contributes to 30% of all airline expenses. So that's it. That's a massive amount of their expenses is just the fuel just to get from one place to another. And the thing with oil is that oil is extremely volatile. In 1 year it was $115 a barrel, and then in the next it was $35 a barrel. An example of this was in the price changes in 2016, where oil had become extremely cheap due to global crises in Iraq and in Russia, like the United States sanctioning Russia by flooding the market with oil, and Saudi trying to get into a price war with the Americans over oil. The price of oil dropped significantly, and that caused airlines to reduce the amount of money it cost to fly, and it was extremely cheap to fly in February of 2016. Airlines have also implemented surcharges, which are included in the ticket prices, which help them combat the varying changes of oil, because the price of oil can change day to day when you book the ticket. Then by the time your flight rolls around, the price of oil, when they need to fill the plane up, might be higher than what they anticipated when you bought your ticket. So they include a surcharge on all your tickets. So here we can look at some graphs. This is the fuel prices, obviously, and you can just see the price per barrel. It just is fluctuating. There's no trend or real pattern to this. It's just completely random. Next one here, we have the monthly imported crude oil price, and you can just see the huge fluctuation of oil. This is just supporting the last graph we also just saw. It's just major fluctuations in the prices. Okay, let's also talk about the supply and demand of airline tickets. So airlines will choose certain flights at certain times and analyze the amount of people that are buying the tickets on these flights. So some flights are obviously more popular than others. Let's say a flight on the 23rd of December, flying from JFK to, another major city like Los Angeles would probably be full, as people are, traveling across the country to return to their families or spend their Christmas with loved ones. So they would analyze the amount of demand for certain flights. For example, a very popular flight's seats will increase drastically in value as the momentum of seat purchases increases, and then an airline will hold the last few seats till the very last minute of the booking cycle area, and then will auction those seats off at extremely high prices to really desperate customers, and that will increase their revenue, because if they just sold every single ticket, every single seat at $280, well, they wouldn't make as much revenue if they sold, half at 280, maybe a third at 350, and then the rest maybe at 1,000. They'd make much more money. So this is a graph here which will just support what I said about Christmas as being a major sort of seasonal time where ticket prices increase drastically. You can just see at at the 25-day mark, the price of airline prices just increases all the way up to almost 25%. That's insane. This is another one, as you can see. So New York, as the summer months are rolling around in the US, is sort of July time, you can just see this ticket prices is just astronomical, and this is the lowest price. It's almost $490 is the lowest fare you can get. It's crazy. Okay, let's look at the types of flyers. So in the introductory slide before, I mentioned how there's different target markets within within people flying on planes. And airlines will analyze the types of buyers for their tickets and attempt to increase their revenue by targeting certain markets within their flights. So the two major markets is business and pleasure. So, they always ask flying for business or pleasure, that type of stereotypical line. So these two major markets for airline tickets are business travelers and leisure travelers. Business travelers will typically book closer to the date and fly at certain times. So, for example, business people will usually fly in the mornings and usually come back on Friday nights. Those are two hot times for business travelers. They'll go for the week, and airlines will then adjust their prices at these times to be higher because business flights are usually less elastic. Let's go to the next slide. So I just went to Qantas and I was looking at prices from flying from Melbourne to Sydney at a Monday morning, right? So look at 6 in the morning is $329, and then as we get towards 9:30, it drops to what, $169. So you can just see that they target these prices, and then obviously we can tell the most popular time for people to be flying is at 7 o'clock in the morning at $374. So that's really interesting. You can see that they've targeted the certain times where business travelers will fly most commonly. All right, let's talk about elasticity when it comes to aircraft prices, airline ticket prices. Sorry, not aircraft. So long-haul international business flights, 0.27. So when we're looking at elasticity, a number closer to 0 is inelastic. So that means, elasticity, all right, let me just start from the beginning. Elasticity is pretty much talking about a change in the price of a product and the change in the demand for a product, right? So if there was a big change in the price and then a small change in the demand, that would mean that there is a very low amount of elasticity. It's inelastic. It's not changing much compared to the price, right? So people who fly for business, they have to fly in the morning, and we just looked at that previous slide where the prices were quite high in the mornings, and they don't really have an option because they need to go Monday morning and they have a meeting at 2 p.m. They can't fly at 1 p.m. because they're not going to be able to get to the airport, sort all their stuff out, get on the plane, then get to the destination by 2 p.m. It's just not possible, right? And even for morning meetings, which are also quite common, they're not going to be able to make the morning meetings. They're leaving after the meetings happen, so they have to fly in the morning, right? And that's why they have such high prices, because they know that they are forced. There's an elasticity there. They're forced to buy those tickets at those prices. So let's look at short haul business. It's 0.07, right? Negative 0.07. Sorry, not 0.07. 0.70. I can't even read numbers. So 0.70. So that's quite a low number, quite an inelastic number. It's quite towards 0 than it is to -2. And then you can look at leisure flyers. This is the interesting part. So leisure flyers will usually book their flights way more into advance. They'll always book their flights into advance because they know they have to book the accommodation, they have to book all the stuff they're doing while they're on holidays. So they're going to book their flights, and what they're also going to do is they're going to use all the different websites to compare the flight prices between the different sites, between the different airlines, and they're going to do a lot more research than a business person who's just going to go, I'm going to fly Qantas, or I'm going to fly Jetstar, or I'm going to fly Virgin. They're just going to go to Virgin, they're just going to book the flight, and that's it. They're not really going to compare flights. So you can see that business people don't often compare flights. There are some exceptions. Long-haul domestic business, they compare flights a bit more, or they're a bit more elastic, so the price does matter a bit more. But you can tell long-haul international business, they'll pay anything to do on those flights. That's essentially all we have for this presentation. I hope you enjoyed and it was informative. Thank you very much.